Right. Hopefully I'm saying Bryan's name right, but Bryan Kohberger, we're going to get the full story. I don't think we're going to watch this entire documentary, but I want to highlight some of the issues and what we already know about the case. Again, I'm joining this case brand new. I have no idea what the charges are. I know some of you mentioned in the comments in the chat that it's alleged that he took the life of some people. So we're going to find out exactly what happened here. I'll leave the link to this video in the descriptions for you guys in case you want to watch the whole thing. Here we go.
Different parties.
Ethan had gone to a fraternity formal with his twin sister as his date and met back up with Zaina at a fraternity party. Maddie and Kaylee were at a bar called the Corner Club.
Okay, so we've got Zaina and Ethan, Maddie and
Kaylee met up with Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, Dak. He and Kaylee had been dating for their entire tenure at the University of Idaho, and they had recently broken up.
After the girls were at the Corner Club, Kaylee and Maddie went to the grub truck, just like a food truck.
Okay, we got some surveillance video. This is good.
Then they got a ride home.
Zaina and Ethan came home around the same time as Maddie and Kaylee.
When everyone was back home at the house on King Road, they all chatted for a bit, and then they went to their various bedrooms.
He said the dog was freaking out and the basement roommate was just yelling, STFU. I know what it stands for. I'm just not going to say it. Instead of going to see what the problem was, reportedly. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Kaylee and Madison went up to the third floor and they settled down together in Maddie's bedroom, while Kaylee's dog Murphy stayed in Kaylee's bedroom, which was across the hall. Zaina and Ethan retired to Xana's room on the second floor, while Dylan went to her room, which was down the hall from that.
It's a big house.
Meanwhile, Bethany went to sleep in her bedroom, and that was on the basement level.
One thing that we know is that Kaylee and Maddie called Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, Jack, several times, but he never picked up. It just went straight to voicemail. The other thing that we do know is that Zaina ordered food and it was delivered to the house around 4 a.m.
Oh my.
That was the last contact the housemates had with the outside world. And when the news broke the very next day, it shocked everyone who heard it.
The small town of Moscow, Idaho remains on edge tonight following the brutal killings of 4 University of Idaho students, Ethan Chapin, Haley Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Madison Mogan, violently attacked inside a rental house near campus early Sunday morning.
It's tough.
From the moment that this story broke, I knew that this was going to be one of the biggest crime stories that I'd ever covered.
Authorities confirm evidence was found on multiple floors. Carnage so severe, photos appear to show blood seeping from the crime scene to the exterior foundation of the home.
Just the basic facts of this case were jaw-dropping. The fact that it was so random and so savage. The fact that there were 4 students murdered. The fact that 2 people survived, and yet no one had any idea who could have done this.
We are continuing to track breaking news out of Moscow, Idaho. It started with a call to the Moscow Police Department just before noon.
House right here is where police found 4 bodies.
People were found dead.
This is a very much developing situation.
I remember heading to the airport, boarding a flight for Idaho, and in that moment, it felt like everyone knew that this was going to be a huge story.
Everything about this case was thought-provoking and eye-catching from word go. These young people's lives played out on social media. But I'll tell you, those images, the beauty of our victims, their vibrant smiles, may very well have been what did them in.
When I arrived on the ground in Moscow, I remember right away there was a lot of confusion.
Can you tell us what you were looking for?
The cops said the murders at King Road occurred sometime after 4 a.m. on the morning of November 13th, 2022. But the 2 surviving roommates, Dylan and Bethany, who may have been sleeping in their bedrooms at the time of the attack, they didn't call 911 until sometime around 12 noon the next day, which is 8 hours later.
The next morning, Dylan and Bethany find their housemates, and allegedly their first phone call was to their friends. So other students, the victim's peers, are coming to the house and seeing what's going on before police even get there.
That's weird.
There's been some speculation as to how the call came in, but it's listed as an unresponsive individual in the house.
Yeah, that's super strange.
Finally, police arrive to find the most horrifying crime scene they've ever witnessed.
The affidavit describes their injuries in great detail.
Dang.
If you've ever seen injuries like that, there's no mistaking them. A knife can do horrific things to a human body.
My phone buzzes me, and it's a text from our city supervisor that says that there's been a murder in town that's involved 4 university students. We have a major situation on our hands, and it became a very major story quickly. And for a person who'd been hoping that his mayoral tenure would feature 4 years of quietude, that was blown right out of the water on the spot.
It's a very tragic and sad situation all around.
The 4 were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located at this time.
This was the kind of thing that you only really think you're going to hear about in a murder
So how do
novel.
we get to Bryan?
It didn't seem possible.
The unthinkable happened in this house behind me. 4 university students brutally murdered here. As soon as I got there, I could see that this was a crime that really, really frightened the students and the residents of the town. The killer was unknown at that point, and he was still on the loose.
I personally won't go out at night alone.
There's a lot of apartment buildings, houses, a lot of kids going to and from. And then you turn onto this road here, which is King Road. This is actually the road that the house is on. You look to the right here.
So how do we get to Bryan? That's what I know. I'm being impatient, but where does Bryan come in? Are y'all saying he was a door dasher or something? What is going on?
Is the house where the murders happened.
Being on the ground and talking with folks every day, it was clear to me that the community was really feeling under siege from all of the outside attention.
All of this really is a nightmare for this town, a nightmare that they just cannot wake up from.
Almost every corner around the university campus, there would be camera crews setting up for a shot. And it wasn't just from local affiliates. It was from Seattle. It was from California. It was from all over.
The news of this had gone right around the world almost overnight.
Wow.
All of this was so overwhelming for the families of the victims. And in the days after the murders, they gradually began to emerge to speak with the media about their lost loved ones.
Is there something you can tell us about Xana, the girl you knew?
Xana she was tough. She was strong. She was funny. She just couldn't make you smile. I think you can see from her TikToks.
If you could describe your daughter in a few words, how would you describe Maddie?
Just bright and funny and just fun. She had such a bright future ahead of her.
Dang, that's tough.
Tell us who your Ethan really was.
Yeah, he was a great kid.
Dang,
In our family, personally, he was kind of the comedian.
You just live life.
You want everybody to be the beneficiary of Kaylee's life.
We try to raise our children not to be self-centered and to sacrifice their lives and try to help other people and find value in that. She was a very likable person and she didn't have a mean bone in her body.
As the families grieved, the scale of this quadruple homicide investigation, it grew larger and larger by the day.
All right, here we go. Now we're getting into it.
You're looking at a crime scene with multiple victims, multiple autopsies. That scene has to be processed. The neighborhood has to be canvassed for the cameras. Cell towers have to be dumped. And that's just the initial stages of this investigation. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger.
It's one of the biggest true crime pages on Facebook with about 227,000 members. And Christine Cameron and Alina Smith are the administrators.
Wow, really?
Christine Cameron and Alina Smith are two people who, if you have been following this case, you cannot ignore. They started the Facebook group, Idaho Murders Case Discussion Group.
Christine and I attended the same high school, and our biggest common factor was we just had this passion for true crime.
Another page. Yeah, that's when I can tell if they're on.
A lot of people
and
do.
So I was like, let's start some true crime pages on Facebook and just get our feet wet.
True crime used to be, you know, a crime happens and then there's an arrest made. Well, because of social media, we have the opportunity to kind of see in real time what is happening. So, you know, you have these armchair sleuths or detectives, so to speak, and they want to be a part of it.
Christine and I have not made any money. We had the option to turn it into a monetizing page, and we didn't because we don't want to benefit off of a crime.
With our other pages, it was just a pastime. Like, we'd set up a page and I have my role and Alina has her role.
We had all these other pages, and I think 6,000 members was a good number. I mean, if we got 6,000, we were like, wow, this is great.
Yeah, this is rough, man.
When the University of Idaho happened, it was almost overnight. It just went from a fun pastime to like a full-time job. At the end of the first day, we had almost 17,000 people on the page.
And then 2 weeks after that, we were already at 80,000. That's how quickly the numbers went. And then 2 weeks after that, we were already about 140. 2 weeks after that, we were 190. It was just wild.
Oh my God. When Christine and Alina's Facebook page blew up, they were surprised as anyone. But I think they had absolutely no idea just how deeply involved they themselves would become in the hunt for the killer.
So what happened?
Moscow, Idaho, a town of only 26,000 people, is typically quiet.
They never recovered the murder weapon.
As one business owner I spoke to put it, people don't even lock their car doors at night.
This is a small town police force with just a little over 30 people total working for it. And suddenly they're swept up in a quadruple homicide. So they were up against a lot, and immediately the internet went after this police force, saying that they were incompetent, they couldn't handle it on their own.
There was a lot of criticism of Moscow police as being something out of Mayberry RFD or something, with Barney Fife fumbling his way around.
For a small town like Moscow, they do not have the laboratory techniques. They do not have the forensics to be able to conduct a true crime scene investigation.
The Moscow police, they didn't hesitate to bring in outside, state, even federal resources. But one thing that struck me very early on in the case, Chief Fry and his department were also careful to maintain control of the investigation as the lead agency in charge.
What I want people to know is this is a Moscow Police Department investigation. We pick the investigators.
They need assistance on a number of different levels. This house had a lot of transient visitors. It had a lot of students coming in and out. So if you're looking for someone who may have had some type of association with the victims, you now have opened it up to a wide cadre of people who potentially had contact with them.
Come to the door, guys. Send whoever lives here down to the door. We're not leaving.
I'm trying to get the timeline straight, because when did this happen?
When investigators started looking into the history of the King Road house, they found many incidents were reported.
Thank you. They would give out the code on the door to their friends, and their friends would have parties.
So I just looked for everyone that lives here, and they're not here right now.
No one's here that
no one's here
at all.
No one's here that lives.
So everyone here's trespassing?
Wow.
Well, no one's here that's trespassing, but no.
It was such a party house that parties were going on whether or not the residents were even home.
Oh, dang.
What are their names? I am actually not sure.
When the crime scene is a place frequented by a large number of people, that complicates things because these are individuals you have to talk with. These are individuals that can contribute to DNA.
Unfortunately, when there were screams, cries for help, and the barking of a dog and other noises coming from the house on the night of the massacre, a lot of residents likely chalked it up to, well, they're just having another party.
In the days following the murder, as the attention of the world was really focused on Moscow, Idaho, they were basically saying nothing. Investigators were really, really tight-lipped.
We know you have questions. And so do we.
They told us the victims' names, they told us that it was a stabbing, and they told us there were no suspects at this time.
The police had locked the scene down, they'd locked the evidence down, they'd locked everything down.
At this time, I'm not going to expand upon that.
It's been a little more than 2 weeks now since the murders. Parts of the timeline are still missing, but we know according to police that Kaylee and Madison were here the night before the killings at a bar called the Corner Club in Moscow. Investigators say they were here between 10 p.m. and 1:30 a.m. While investigators struggled to rein in false allegations, they were actually keeping concealed from the public some really crucial information about the night of the attack. There was an eyewitness account from one of the surviving roommates, and they were able to use that to reconstruct the movements of the killer that night.
The middle of the night, the suspect entered through the sliding glass doors on the main floor. And then there's a set of stairs which takes you up to the 3rd floor.
I believe his intended target was one of the girls upstairs.
He had a K-bar knife. It's like one step away from a samurai sword.
Oh, yeah.
It's a crazy weapon.
Usually they're
he wanted
serrated,
a
too.
physical battle.
He entered the bedroom where Kaylee and Maddie were sleeping and attacked them with the knife. It only took a few moments.
Dylan, one of the roommates in the house, heard noises above her. Her information is vital. She provides an eyewitness account. She puts the killer in the home at the time of the killings.
Dylan opens her door once, sees nothing, texts her housemates to be quiet. She's trying to go to sleep.
Meanwhile, the 5th roommate, Bethany, was believed to be asleep in her bedroom down on the basement level.
At the same time, Zaina and Ethan had just gotten the DoorDash, and I think as the killer's coming down, maybe like one of them peeked out and saw him.
It's like a Scream movie.
There was a struggle outside Xana's room. Ethan was mortally wounded. Xana fought for her life.
Dang.
But they couldn't save each other.
The dog's barking. Dylan hears them yelling and some commotion. You know, she's yelling upstairs for the dog to stop barking.
Dylan got up and went to her door again. This time, when she looked out, she saw the dark figure of a man dressed all in black.
Oh, no.
He's wearing a mask. All she can see are his eyes and his bushy eyebrows, which really stand out to her. And he just walks right past her without saying anything and walks out the back of the house. All of this takes place within about 15 minutes. This is still about 4:15 a.m. And she stays in her room and she doesn't call police for another 8 hours.
So this is one of the real mysteries of what happened that morning. Why did Dylan not notify police that something was wrong until around 12 noon on November 13th?
We don't know why that call came in at noon and not in the middle of the night.
What happened? Why the 8-hour delay?
Why?
One of the biggest unanswered questions about these murders was why did surviving roommate Dylan not call police for 8 hours after seeing the suspect in the house in the middle of the night?
The affidavit says after seeing this man, Dylan enters into a frozen shock phase.
She said, quote, that she was in a frozen shock phase. A frozen shock phase.
Why not call police? Could she have been in shock for that long?
When the world first learned that Dylan had actually laid eyes on the killer, I think there was a lot of confusion. I mean, the truth is, it's the middle of the night she opens her door and sees a strange man.
That's weird.
Probably had no idea what had happened in the house, but it's frightening enough to see a strange man in your house in the middle of the night. And so it's understandable that a 19-year-old would be slightly shocked.
How did she survive?
She was paralyzed with fear in that moment, and self-preservation becomes the #1 priority. And so it does not surprise me at all that she locked her door and was frozen with fear, and that there was such a delayed response.
Wow.
Another thing that police had in their possession from the beginning that the public knew nothing about turned out to be a critical piece of evidence.
The arriving first police officer on scene did see a knife sheath.
That's convenient.
That knife sheath had on it a Marine Corps logo.
The knife sheath was found with Kaylee and Maddie. As an investigator, you're securing that item to preserve whatever is on there, be it a fingerprint, a hair, DNA, blood, sweat, anything.
Wow. So this is where the
crime
DNA
lab then
comes from.
would have worked to try to extract DNA from that item. Now, assuming that this was just touch DNA and perhaps skin cells or maybe a little bit of sweat, this would have been a very small amount of DNA. But if they're successful at that extraction, then they will create what's called an STR profile.
A DNA profile was obtained from the sheath. Significant development in the case. Huge nuclear bomb in this investigation.
Interesting. Okay, well, there it is. I'm going to leave a link to this video in the chat and in the description for y'all. This is a crazy story. We didn't even get to hear about Bryan yet in this one. I want to know what's going on with Bryan. But y'all are giving me some insight. Let me know what y'all think about this. And should we continue to cover it once the trial starts? Let me know.